At 6 o'clock, if we could all stand for the pledge to begin with, please. And Joel, you're our veteran. Would you please start?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could stay standing, please.
Thank you, Lord, for this wonderful day. Help us to enjoy the prosperity for our region and enjoy the weather we're having. Help us to lead with integrity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Okay, welcome to the Addison Township Board meeting. Today is July 15th. It's just after 6 o'clock. And meeting's being held at the Addison Township offices, 1440 Rochester Road, Addison Township. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Rick Sent. He's absent and excused. Linda Garrett. Present. Jacob Newby.
Here.
Joe King.
Here.
Lori Fisher. Here. Bennett present. Supervisor Pearson.
Present. Okay. And any announcements?
No.
Department reports. As usual, they're available in my office. And if anybody would like them, we do have the financial report. Petitions. Any petitions?
No.
Okay. Who will be?
I'd like to move that we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll support.
Any discussion? Not hearing any, can we have roll call on that, please?
Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Joe King.
Aye.
Linda Garrett. Yes. Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. Okay. Consent agenda.
This consent agenda is very brief. June 17th, 2019 minutes, and the bills is paid for June 19th.
I'll make a motion to move the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any, can we have roll call, please?
Joe King.
Aye.
Linda Garrett. Yes. Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. Okay. We'll move on to the next item, which is the public hearing resolution for Dorn's Special Assessment District. Do we have somebody here from Dorn? No. Okay. Are we still going forward? Anybody?
I would just open the public hearing.
Okay, well, let's, I did have some discussion, so I'll ask what we're going to do on this. Okay, this is a public hearing, the resolution for Dorn, a special assessment district. The Township Board received petitions signed by more than 50% of the record owners based on the tax roll of Oakland County constituting more than 50% of the total frontage of the proposed SAD, requesting the amount of $250 per parcel for each of the next 5 years for the purpose of maintenance as listed, and a 5% collection fee for the township. This is in addition to an already established SAD for $250, which goes through 2022. A notice of the hearing was published and mailed to each property owner within the proposed SAD. The Office of the Supervisor verified and determined that the petitions for Dorn SAD is properly signed by the record owners of the 28 parcels. Noted the petition does not include an SAD assessment for parcel 0513.400.057. This is where we listen, and if anybody from the petition would like to speak, this is your time to come forward. And I'm going to open up the public hearing now, and we'll say at 6:04. Is anybody from...
Yeah, it's come to our attention that you've let 057 off our SAD. They've been on it for years, and the old man died. His children came up here and complained that they didn't want to pay. That parcel owns more frontage on our road than any other parcel. That parcel owns to the center of Dorn Drive. We have a new person that bought that parcel. They poked the driveway out onto our road, and they should be part of our assessment. Now, they haven't paid for 10, 15 years, which really I feel we should be entitled to that money, but it's already gone. But I'm not going to go another 5 years and let them use our road without paying us our $500.
Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on the SAD? Okay, I'll close the hearing then if nobody else wants to speak on the SAD.
Well, at this point, I've been told that we need to rescind our 2018 SAD, withdraw the new one that we've just put in. I'm requesting the township's assistance to correct the problem that I feel the township created and help me write up a new SAD that I have to turn in by this Friday to make sure the wording is correct and that you will accept whatever wording that is on it. Friday's an awful short notice for me to go up and down the road and collect 15 or 20 signatures.
Okay. Is anybody else who would like to speak? 'Cause this is where we listen, okay? So I will close the hearing and then we will speak after that. But right now it's your turn to talk.
Well, we received a list from the township, and so that's what we went by, and that's what, when we started this, that was just in the process of being sold, so it was not listed on here yet. The driveway wasn't put in yet, and I was informed that they would have to put in an application for a driveway to see where they would have permission to get a driveway. They put one in on Dorn. So we were going by what we were given from the township, and I have it right here. And now that, and again, I believe the sale was taking place basically at the very same time we were doing this. So I guess I'm a little confused as to, since the sale was just taking place in that time period, why it wouldn't just go into effect as it turned over to a new owner. Because the waiver may have been for the previous owner, but not necessarily for the new owner. So I'm a little confused as to why we would even have to go through all of this, since we rushed to get this all in time for this meeting and the future meetings, and going based on what we were told from the township.
Okay, like I said, this is where we listen. We will respond shortly, but does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Yes.
One other item. I know when they sold it, they had the trucks coming up there, and they put all that big long road in off of the Quinder, all the way back. And then they put a gate there. And there was a little tiny road off of Dorn, and that's where the guy had his garden, and he just used it every once in a while to go to the garden. And then out of the clear blue sky, whoever bought this property cleared all that into a driveway and then put another gate over there. And ever since then, there's cars going to that property, and they're always going in on the Dorn entrance. So therefore, they're using Dorn as their primary usage, but they're liable to use the Quinder as their address and then try to skate out of that. And so they should indeed, if they're using that, be on the assessment with the rest of us.
Any other comments on it? Okay, not hearing any, then I'll close that hearing. We'll say at 6:08. And I'll respond real quickly, okay? And then I'm going to open up to the board. Special assessment districts are that we only accommodate what everybody asks. The special assessments are not the job of the township. We accommodate whoever requests it. I do notice that on some of the other SADs, that parcel was eliminated. So that same information you got is from your first petition. And now you're adding another one, and I do know about that property out there, and I do understand that property. I knew the previous owner before he passed away, and I do understand that now they're using Dorn. My suggestion is, and I'm going to open this up to the board, that we discuss it, that I think if we give you enough time, that you're going to have to get a new petition to have that included. We have to follow the law, and that's the law. See, the township does not do SADs. This is your petition, and we then accommodate you and put it on the tax roll, but we don't have anything to do with the SAD at all. This is your request, okay? And that's, people misunderstand sometimes. They think the township is doing the special assessment district. We aren't. It's the individuals who live on that road, and there's certain things that have to be followed, like the announcements in the paper and the 2 meetings, and then we just collect the tax for you, and then the treasurer can help and write out checks when you request it, or They can do other things depending on how much you want to pay. But the SAD really is the people's assessment on that private road. If you want to add somebody on it, it had to be on there at the time you pass that. Now, you can put a new one out and put that one on there, and if 51% of the people on that road agree to that, then that will be included. That's the law, okay? And like I said, it's not our assessment. We only try to help by giving you listings of the people who are on the street. Technically, it's the petitioner who is responsible to get this back to us. Okay, I hope that helps a little bit. And we're more than willing to accommodate, but there's certain parameters that we have to have included on there, which are all of the parcel numbers. And this one never was on there because I do know the history that they always did come off of DeQuinder. But if you want them on there, they certainly do border that road. So I'd like to open this up to the board.
I'm having a little opportunity to talk to some of the people today. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to deny the petition until written clarification from the representatives on the petition on if the parcel is included or not, or until such time a possible new petition is submitted.
And if well, that's a motion. Does anybody second that motion?
I'll support the motion because from looking at the overheads, it clearly should be assessed and should be part of the petition, and apparently at some point in the past it was excluded. So I think that it looks to me like it does belong as part of the SAD, so I don't have an issue with that.
Is there any other discussion from the board?
So my limited experience with our special assessment district, so I live on the corner, but my driveway dumps out onto the road. It's a private road, and my address is on the private road. Then my neighbor across the street dumps out onto the Indian Lake and does not have an address on my road and is not part of our special assessment district. Do we need to clear this with, are we going to get in trouble if we accept an assignment of a parcel that's on a corner, I guess, what we're talking about here?
Generally, it's at the discretion of anybody who borders that road, technically is supposed to pay. Even the people on the corner, if their property borders it, they're supposed to pay. The agreement must have been set, like in the past. I think it was Tony who owned if I remember right, when I was a deputy, he was the tailor down that made suits and everything down in Grosse Pointe, and he always chipped in. I know that because he had a Christmas tree farm there, but somebody else has bought this property now. But it does border that road, and technically it should be included. And that corner piece that you're talking about technically should be included, but somebody's made an agreement in the past, they've come to a meeting, and the people have agreed to opt them out. But if people don't want to opt them out, technically they should be paying. So we have a motion and we have a second. It's basically to table this, deny it, and then we will give you time. We have a meeting in August, and then we have a meeting in September. It just has to be voted on in August and September because it goes on the rolls on October 1st. So anyways, let's take a vote. Roll call, please.
Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Joe King.
Aye.
Linda Garrett.
Yes.
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. If we get a petition with 51% of the people, including that parcel, and get it back by this week, generally, we have a policy that if we don't receive SADs by March, then we don't take them up till the following year. But if you get that back by Friday, we'll have enough time to get it on the August meeting, and then we have to have one more meeting in September, and it should make the date if that's your pleasure, okay? Sorry about that, but you have to understand SADs are not the township. We're not requesting them, we're only accommodating. So technically, the information we give you is the best to our knowledge of what the last one was, but you really need to do your homework on the parcels also.
So will you give us the petition? Copy of the petition to circulate?
So you just need new ones of these?
Yes.
Can you wait till tomorrow morning?
Pauline is going to send me a Word document to allow us to change it.
Okay, and that'd be tomorrow then.
Right.
Thank you. And we're sorry for the inconvenience, but we have to follow the law, and the law is really in your hands. You are the ones that are petitioning to us and that's why we have to vote to agree on it. But we're not the ones that do the writing or add the actual addresses. That's the
That
petition.
parcel should have never been pulled off our SAD to begin with. Riley was part of our original architectural committee 30 years ago. Him and his wife were on the board.
We have never pulled it off. It's always been at the request of the people who live on that road. Okay?
It was his children that came up.
Years ago, it was an agreement between the people who lived on that road who allowed them not to be on there. It has not been us. So that's why I'm saying if you want it on there, you need to put it on your petition and have the 51% of the people on that road, and then they will have to abide by the 51%.
It'll be back by Friday.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. This is number 3, which is the resolution for support for the Addison Township new library construction. This resolution is our way of showing support to the library and its endeavors for a new building. This may also be used by the library board as a tool to apply for any grants. Jama or Mary, do you have anything that you would like to add about the library?
Could you just repeat what you said?
I said this is our way, the township board's way of supporting you for your endeavors of a new building. And this may be used by a library board as a tool so you can apply for grants. Do you have anything else that you'd like to say? Or?
Yes, I'd like to speak to the
Sure,
board.
go ahead.
Thank you. It's with great excitement to be here this evening amongst all of you and everybody here. My name is Jama Berman. I'm the director of the Township Library. It's my privilege and honor to be here. On behalf of the Addison Township Library and the Board of Trustees, I want to express my sincerest gratitude for this heartfelt resolution to support the new library construction. Through trade company contacts and the reduction of the site plan application fees, the library, by providing books and movies, programs, and especially learning opportunities for our young people, for our children, for our grandchildren, for our future. It embodies the vast energy and collective spirit of this community. The generous resolution today speaks to the hearts of our citizens and their hopes and dreams for their children and for their grandchildren. The growth and expansion of our township library is based in the action of bringing people together to embody and embrace what we are today and what we can be in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well said.
Okay. Is there a motion to move the resolution? Everybody has a resolution in front of them.
I so move.
I'll support.
Any other comments?
Yeah, and I go back to 2011, when we put the current library in place. I remember that Bruce Pearson was organizing a group of volunteers to come over. And we went over there, I thought it was just going to be a meeting, and Bruce handed me a sledgehammer and we proceeded to start taking down walls. And I'm glad that the township is continuing to support the independent library organization. I'm really glad to see this.
I myself will tell you that I support the libraries. I've used libraries ever since I was a little guy, and my mother was a big supporter of the libraries, and I've stated that many times. And I do support the library. So we have a motion and a second on the resolution. Could we have roll call, please?
Woody Burns.
Yes.
Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Joe Kings.
Aye.
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes, resolution is so moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to item number 4, resolution authorizing the charter franchise agreement and requesting PEG fees. The agreement resolution was reviewed and approved by the Township Regional Council. This authorizes that franchise for an additional 10 years and currently receive 5% of the franchise fees. OCTV has asked that request the 2% PEG fees. The resolution does both approve the agreement and the request for the 2% PEG fees. Does the board have any questions on this?
Just one question at the end of the resolution, the board meeting date here, should that be July?
Sure. And the certification,
Yes.
yeah.
And I had a question. I've never seen the charter contract. Are we currently receiving the 2% PEG fees?
No, that's why we're asking for that. We only get the 5%. And we're also on a time frame of 30 days, and that law was set by the state.
Yeah, I read
so-
that in there. That's kind of surprising that they pushed that. The other
kind of-
question I had is the last whereas it talks about internet services. And this is really about video, and we don't get PEG fees or franchise fees on internet access. So I was just wondering if there was a reason that was in there.
Where are you looking at?
The last whereas on the resolution.
That is going not to so much this contract, but we also contract with Charter. They provide internet service. There are areas in this township that still do not have internet service.
Oh, there's a ton
I
of
have
them.
been, right. So this has been our goal, is to get Addison Township completely access to internet service. And if you notice, it has nothing there about 2% PEG fee, because, yeah, you're right, that has nothing to do with that. But we still want to reiterate that we want our entire population to receive internet service.
Okay. I just wasn't sure since it was regarding a video service local franchise agreement.
That has been since day one. We've tried to fight for that, and we still have not gotten there.
Okay, any other questions?
I'd like to move the resolution forward.
I'll second.
I don't have any other comments. We have a motion and a second. Can we have roll call on that then, please?
Linda Garrett.
Yes.
Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Joe King.
Aye.
Lori Fisher.
No.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. Okay. And the resolution is so moved. We'll move on to number 5, amend the building official agreement. Well, the building official is something that we as a township we have to have a building official, and during slow times, in order to keep one available, the township, we've offered a paid hourly position. It is not feasible to continue with the current agreement and maintain under 29 hours per week. We're in a building boom right now. The building officials requested a change. And this is what we at one time had before. Before, you use an agreement that reverts to the current rates for other permits of 75% in addition to being paid for 8 hours per week as the established rate for being available and overseeing the department, etc. It eliminates the building official of code enforcement, but he may oversee it as part of his 8 hours per week. I talked this over with the building official and reviewed, and he concurs to the proposed agreement. We'll open this up for discussion. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
And this is absolutely just about the position and the numbers, not anything personal. Have we looked, so I'm figuring at the base pay plus if I use last year's numbers of what we brought in for building permits, and that's very on track for this year. This position alone would pay about $71,000 a year. Is that in the ballpark of average for a part-time employee?
Well, first of all, I didn't put in part-time hours, but
Well, but he's also doing heating and plumbing, so that's another $20-some thousand, $30,000. So I have no idea how many hours are actually being worked? Is it that normal
Well,
expenditures?
it all depends on how much building we have going on and how much inspection there is. And right now, we're in a building boom, and that's why I'm trying to separate the ordinance officer from the building department. So at this time, he can't do all of it. I think I gave statistics last month of how we've increased, and he can't be at all these places at one time. So the way it was before is how it is here. Before the recession of 2008 hit, this was the agreement. And when the recession hit, we couldn't keep a building official here because there was no building going on, but there were still people inquiring, and he had to be here so that he could answer questions for people. So we put him on an hourly amount to keep him here during the recession. But now that the recession is over and the building is booming, the building department itself is self-sufficient. And so that's why we're going to separate, or we would like to separate, the building official and let him continue on with the building aspect of the township, and then let the ordinance officer, because ordinances are also increasing, and let an ordinance officer handle that. So that's the reason that we're reverting back to the old contract.
How many hours a week does he work?
Well, if you want to know honestly, he's supposed to work part-time, but to be honest with you, he's working full-time.
Most full-time building officials are close to $100,000 a year.
Well, he'd be making over 100 if you added in all the pay. So I have no idea. I don't.
Well, we can't include a building, we still have to have a plumbing inspector, we still have to have a mechanical inspector, and we still have to have an electrical inspector. If you add all those up in any township, I'm sure it would be a huge amount. But we're very fortunate in the sense that he is a licensed building official, as well as a licensed heating and cooling and plumbing. So it actually streamlines our system. We do farm out for a licensed electrical inspector. But no matter where we give it to, it's going to go to somebody. So this way, if you're trying to say that because he's everything.
I'm not making it personal. I'm just saying, what should we as in the township our size expect to pay? That's all that I'm saying.
Well, Linda, you work at the building department in Harrison Township. What would they pay? I know what they paid down there for.
What's your
$84,000, but they also get full health care.
What's your time frame on approvals for permits?
It depends on the workload, but usually 2 weeks.
Okay. And
We're 6 weeks behind right now. Any other discussion?
Well, they also get full retirement pensions and unlimited sick time and 6 weeks of vacation.
I went into the wrong profession.
And I'll tell you right now, you can't get an inspector, you can't get a building official. Every city, every township is stealing from each other.
We can't even find
There's
them.
nobody
We're looking
qualified.
for inspectors.
I had an ad in the paper just for somebody to come help at the building department, and nobody applied. I finally have one person in the township who we did hire now, but we couldn't get anybody to even apply. So, any other discussion? So I'm looking for a motion to approve the building official agreement dated July 15, 2019.
I would make that motion.
Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll take away a roll call, please.
Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Joe Kane.
Aye.
Linda Garrett.
Yes.
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. Okay. That one passes. We'll move on to authorize a new position for a code enforcement officer, including per hour wages. This is probably long overdue, although Doug has done a fine job at doing the ordinance enforcement. The person I found is an employee, and he's actually working right now at Oakland Township, and I've spoken with him. He's a retired deputy sheriff. He works part-time at Oakland Township doing ordinance enforcement, so we're very familiar with the whole process and the court. What I'm looking for tonight is a motion to waive a public notice for advertising this open position, since we need to hire somebody right away, and I need somebody with experience and a professional. I need authorization to create the position, also to establish the rate of pay at the third year step of $16.86 per hour based on his experience. I think that he could probably do this job probably in just 2 4-hour shifts a week until we get caught up. I think I gave the statistics of how all of our ordinance violations have skyrocketed and the buildings have skyrocketed, and there's no way that one person can do it, so this is getting him help. And maybe towards the winter, when things slow down, then maybe we can revert back and let the building official handle the few that do come in at that time. So, anybody have any questions?
I think this is an on-call position and budgeted for up to 20 hours, just so that we wouldn't have to come back and do a budget amendment. I am all for hiring an ordinance officer. We've had them on and off at the township, and it seems to work so much better when the positions are separate. I'd like to waive the requirement for public notice and for advertising for this opening and posting of this position due to the nature of it being a professional position and also the urgency of needing someone.
I'll second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion?
I'd like you to explain again, if you would, why we're stepping it up the pay raise or the step schedule.
He has so many years' experience either being an officer or being an ordinance enforcement officer. I think it would be very hard and difficult to find somebody come in with that type of experience as number 1 year in our step system. So at 16, I think it was 1686 per hour for over 5 years experience as ordinance officer, and I don't know how many as a sheriff. I think it would be well worth to do it, just like we sped up Marie May.
Thank you.
Believe me, the code ordinance officer is not the most popular person in town. Okay? So I'm just saying, you might want to have somebody who has 35 or 38 years of police experience, who knows how to handle people, and hopefully we get compliance
Does he
without.
live in the township?
Pardon?
Does he live
No,
in-
he does not live in the township. Yeah.
You wouldn't want to be the code officer and live here too.
Yeah, egg sales would rise, wouldn't they? You know, if you lived in the township. Well, anyways, does anybody have any other comments? If we could we have a roll call on that, please?
Linda Garrett.
Yes.
Joe King.
Aye.
Jacob Regan. Lori Fisher. Yes. Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes.
And then the second part of the motion was to authorize to create the position of ordinance officer and also to establish the rate of pay as third-year step pay of $16.86 per hour based on his experience on an on-call basis.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Second, any comments? Not hearing it, could a roll call on that, please?
Joel King.
Aye.
Linda Garrett.
Yes.
Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. And that passes. Okay, we'll be on to item number 7, the budget amendment as follows. The general fund carryover increased by $29,000 to $153,753. Building permits, which is 101,000,504,000. Building permit fees increased by $5,000 to $80,000. Account 101.380.822000, building official inspector wages increased by $20,000 to $72,500. Account 101.380.706.000, code enforcement officer, create line item in budget and insert $14,000. This budget amendment addresses the previous two agenda items. We increased building permits, with the increased building permits coming up slightly and the increased wages of the building official, and establish a line item for code enforcement. We're bringing in more money, okay, so I think this is, if we look at it, it's going to be pretty much a wash. If the building permits go that high, the building official wages is basically a wash. At $80,000 revenue and permits, the township retains $20,000, which will offset the cost of the code enforcement officer if we use him for a full 20 hours per week. We overestimated, not knowing how many cases, but we've had an exceptional high amount of cases. As current practice, any remaining funds from permitting process is used to offset the cost of the building department as a whole. Does anybody have any comments?
Well, just to reiterate, this new contract is based off a permit, so his wages will, as most of the inspectors get percentages of the permits, they could go down, and we could be looking at putting them back to where we were before, so we don't know what the future's going to hold. It's nice to see the development. I would make a motion to accept these budget amendments, revenue and expenditure adjustment of $34,000 as stated on the agenda.
Second.
Anybody have any comments? Not hearing any, can we have roll call, please?
Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Joe King.
Aye.
Linda Garrick.
Yes.
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. And that one passes. Okay, we'll move on to public forum. Anybody in the public have anything they'd like to speak, please come forward. And we're here to listen. We don't comment at this point, but we're here to listen. If anybody has anything they'd like to add. Everybody quiet.
Question.
If anybody has anything, please come forward there, yeah?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Chuck Sargent, 552 Deer Point. Looking at item number 7, and if you listen and I have a question, maybe I won't get an answer. But item 7, looking at the numbers, the last two line items total $34,000. I assume that is the budget amendment, sum total of $34,000. I also understand that the building official agreement has been amended, and the question, is that now a full-time or remain a part-time responsibility with full-time hours logged? And the follow-up to that is, the previous agreement included a pay for ordinance enforcement. Has that pay been adjusted? If the responsibility has been removed, has the pay for that work been adjusted? And then finally, moving to $72,500 with a $20,000 kicker or increase leads me to an approximate $52,000 current base. That's a 40%, 39 to 40% increase in pay for reduced responsibilities, not just looking at the numbers and the logic.
Okay, any other comments? So we don't respond in this place. This is
I know
public
this.
forum,
It's a
okay?
question.
And I can't tell you if you're correct or not, but anybody else would like to, yes, go ahead.
I guess Jerry Pierce, average 284 Baywood. And I don't know if the folks are going to, talk about this tonight, but there's been some recent discussion on the lake and lake owners, property owners association, and I guess this is probably relevant to the need for having a code enforcement official. there's docks, there's an ordinance that's written, within, the township codes, that basically states that a dock can be no longer and no wider than, 6 feet by no longer than 30 feet. Numerous, violations, on the lake, probably upwards of 40 plus odd violations that over the years have different configurations in that. And so, now I think, what's going to be coming before the board at some point in time, and probably through various planning commissions, such as to change that ordinance. Basically to allow a lot of the people that are in violation right now to pretty much go scot-free because, they're in violation, quote, we need to update, this ordinance. So I think, as far as consideration moving forward, I think a couple things that I've seen is that really, nothing needs to be done with the ordinance. You can probably just enforce it as it is. And I think at 40 times whatever your violation rate is, could probably be well paid for, that person's position. There can also be a motion to change, but again, I guess, in that context of changing, nothing from the previous ordinance was ever enforced. So again, another reason to have an ordinance person there, because essentially nothing was done and allowed these 40 plus odd people to basically do whatever they want, which amazes me because I'm one of the probably other of the 200 and some odd folks in this lake association that have read the ordinance, went back and looked at it, made sure that my property was appropriate, and took the time and care to do that. But yet all of these other people did not do that, and so as a result, they're going to pretty much go scot-free. I mean, there's nothing that's going to be done to take care of it, nothing to take care of the allotments. There's nothing that was written into there to even have a permit process that's required for a deck or a fence or whatever else that we have in here, so that there's no way to really go back and say, why were these people out of there? So I think if, moving forward, if there is something that's done to change it, I think a permit process needs to be out there for every dock on this lake. And I think finally, again, whenever we do this, how do we go back and take care of, any infractions, to the ordinance that there is now? There's many places on this lake and many of the coves, that are around, this lake and this lake property, where it is almost impossible to take care of docks that are out of compliance, without infringing upon the neighbors', properties. There are many cases right now where there are, processes that are in place to take care of these violations. And then the other part I think that probably distresses me even more is there is a process within, this, township to take care of people that are out of compliance. They can make an appeal to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And yet at this last, planning, the Property Owners Association, not one of these people said that they ever went, before the board, Zoning Board of Appeals. I've been at many of those meetings. I know it's a process that, that should be taking place. And I would say, at the very least, that needs to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals before it even comes up, to this, commission group, to make any type of a vote on it. So I don't know what the notices are going to be from anybody that's going to come up, after me, but I would say that, quite honestly, this also does not represent, I would say, everybody on this lake, because I think all it represents is the opinion of the majority of people that were at this last meeting. This is not, nothing was, sent out to all of the individual folks, within the association to comment. And I think in many of these cases, it probably advantages those people that have bigger pieces of property because, their requirement is, well, I should be able to have a second dock because I've got a bigger piece of property. Right now we're not enforcing it on the number of boats, that are out there, and that's to say that we could probably have 75, feet, could have 4 boats as opposed to the 2 that are indicated out there, and there's also no definition right now within the code as to what a boat is. So any other personal watercraft and other things, within, the ordinances are not even listed. So I would say very carefully, if you hear things, go back, put this, through a very stringent review. My recommendation is do nothing. Just enforce what you have in place right now.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Catane, 290 Kingston. I'm one of the homes that's new, that's being built, where I've given a lot of your permits, obviously. My concern really is for the code enforcement officer, where I have the real issue. Jerry, I'm the next door neighbor of Jerry. The other neighbor that we have on the other side has had an illegal dock there for about 11, 12 years. He constantly refuses to do anything. We've had many, many times they've gone out there and told him to conform to the dock. He has refused to do that. My concern is this new code enforcement officer will have the authority to actually really do something, right? To enforce this, instead of it having to go to court, right? Which can possibly happen. I'm hoping that you guys would be able to do that. I've always abided by all bylaws, especially when I've built my home. I had to abide by all setbacks. I'm very concerned because Jerry and I live in a cove, and that's where the people really have trouble. And the individual that's next door to us occupies every inch all the way to the property line. And that's where we had our LLPOA meetings. We've discussed where we're coming up with a 10-foot setback, trying to enforce him to be 4 feet out or 6 feet wide in doing that. But it's just a real concern of mine. I hope that this code enforcement officer has the teeth to make the changes. That's where the real issue is, because he's causing a lot of havoc in our cove, So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Bartlett, 1469 Rochester. We've done, I also am on the board for the LLOPA, but as a lake owner, I've done a lot of research as far as the current dock policy that's in place at Addison Township. It's close to 30 years old. It hasn't been enforced, it hasn't been updated, and it clearly, from all indications by the lake owners, is not kept up with times or the needs of the lake owners on the lake. It's evidenced by the non-compliance of the lake owners, and it's more than 40. I think you've issued 40-some letters, and that's the tip of the iceberg of non-compliance on the lake. I spent the weekend on Gun Lake. Their dock ordinance is similar to most other lakes in the state, and that's where it's managed by DEQ, where you have no specific policy for seasonal, and you have a specific DEQ for permanently installed docks. What Addison Township has done, in my opinion, is try to come together with a logical single dock policy that maintains the integrity of this lake, that also allows you to also maintain the culture and the flavor of Addison Township, which I commend. What hasn't happened, though, is that policy has not been kept up to date with the needs of the lake owners, as evidenced by the usage of the lake and also the changes of the lake. The needs of being able to store your kayaks, the needs to be able to store your paddle boats, the needs to be able to actually tie up your 2 boats you're allowed and not have them damaged by the wave boats that are going by and they're throwing them up 2 feet, 3 feet on your shoreline. So the needs have changed from when this dock policy was written 30 years ago. And I believe when we presented it was notified to every lake owner about the topic of what was discussed at the last LLOPA meeting. Every resident of the lake had the opportunity to come and voice their opinion. Also, the presentation was sent out as a pre-read to everybody on the lake. At that meeting, a presentation was overwhelmingly endorsed by attendees of the lake owners of what was presented as far as a logical progression of modification of what could be done to the current ordinance to, one, make it in tune with the times and needs of the lake owner. It would also reduce a burdensome enforcement of an ordinance that's clearly outdated and almost impossible to enforce. I mean, it just has not kept up with times. So what was presented at the LLOPA, I believe, has been shared by our president. A request was made by the lake owners that the president make the needs of the lake owners expressed to the township. I hope you had an opportunity to review that letter. But I would say that we're long overdue. I fully agree in enforcing the ordinance of you're allowed 2 boats. We all have an MC number on our boats. I'll be happy to give you my 2 MC numbers. They're registered in my name. I have no problem with that. But not to be able to tie up my property and protect my shoreline with adequate walkways and docks, or have a place to sit with my grandchild to fish, is not an unreasonable request, especially when you look at other lakes around the United States. But the other thing that was made in that proposal of the ordinance we'd ask you to review is the overriding authority of the township to make interpretations of gray areas. You're going to have pilots, you're going to have people that have felt they're infringed upon. Somebody has to be an ordinance enforcer to break the tie, and then enforce people in respect of each other's property lines. And I think that ordinance recommendation that was brought forward allows that. So I appreciate your time today. I appreciate your effort. I ask that you review the ordinance that exists today I would ask that you suspend the enforcement activities that are being, bannered about right now. Because one, it's not equal enforcement due to the fact that you don't have enough people to do the enforcement. But two, you're trying to enforce an ordinance on physical docks that have been in place for 20 years. And it's just a burden to the township, or to the residents. So those are my thoughts as a lake owner, as somebody that studied this topic. I think there's ways to coexist with our neighbors when there's somebody that's infringing or not maybe allowing you proper water access. The DEQ fully has as an underwriting charter of their dock policy is in no way can it affect the navigation or property rights of the individual. So navigation of the lake or property rights of other neighbors. So I think it can be managed. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your consideration for possibly suspending enforcement and allowing the opportunity to review that ordinance, which is outdated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in public forum? Okay, we have one more.
I think you're in receipt of the letter that we submitted. In fact, I'm expecting some comment yet tonight. What I'd like to share with the other board members is simply this. 30 years is a long time. Technology has changed dramatically. The lifestyles of the property owners on the lake has changed. And the lake has gone through a huge shift that continues today from cottages that were occupied part-time, where people really didn't know each other that well, to people that live full-time. And this is, not just their house, their home. There are issues on both sides, and this is going to be one that you're going to, if you're going to consider it, you're going to have to walk through it. But I would like you to keep those things in mind, because from a property owner standpoint, that's real. That's not something that they created. Some of the other issues, some of the details, yes, okay. Maybe there needed to be better enforcement. Maybe there needed to be better compliance throughout the years. But as far as where we stand today and where we're going, those three facts are facts of life. And I'd like you to keep those in mind as you proceed on this topic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Steve Posner. I've lived on the lake for 25 years, and I'd just like to say I agree with Mike, the way he put it, and I just kind of want to stand behind what he said. It sounds like a reasonable request, and it sounds like he's kind of researched it, and I'd just like to give him my support and let you know that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Well, then we'll close public forum. We'll move on to Addison Township Board reports. Anybody on the board? Jacob, anything you need to add? Anything from the boards you're on? Nope.
So I went to the Oakland County SISMA, the Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area meeting. They have an online map that shows where they have mapped out various invasive species. Addison seems to be really heavily focused around Addison oaks, the Phragmites, knotweed, swallowwort. I think they're missing a lot though. They were asking, and I did not have an answer to this question for Addison, whether we ever get the folks here ever field questions about invasive species or not. They'd be overjoyed if you just gave them the SISMA phone number, or if you wanted to put you would put a link to the SISMA website on the Township boards, the Township website. They're still in the process of bidding out the right-of-way Phragmites treatments, which will affect us greatly because those are for county roads, and we've got a lot of county roads. Historically, they've gone with multiple contractors throughout the entire county, and they've signed geographical areas. And then they'll notify us of who's got Addison. And for the most part, since you can get a good rate as a private owner when the guy's out here treating the county road anyway. This is something I had not been aware of, but back in, I believe it was in March, the state passed a clean, drain, dry boating law, which has got some specific requirements about when you pull your boat out of the water, making sure you're not dragging along any invasive species with it. There are boat launch signs available we could ask for. I think because of the boat launch, however, is the one here on Lakeville is run by, I assume, the DNR. That they would be the ones responsible for doing the signage posting. But for people on smaller private lakes, there are signs available. They'd like to post one.
Very good. I will add that, last year we did put money into the grant for the road commission. They did spray, and it has been successful. If you notice along the road, you'll see the dead Phragmites. A little bit of it's coming back, but we did sign up again this year. They're going to respray. We were waiting to see if, first of all, if this would be successful. But after this year's spraying, if it keeps going the way it's going, then I'd have to say that it is successful. And then I think maybe we should address this throughout the township, because it does no good, just like you said, for us to be spraying all along the roads and then the person right across the street not doing it. So Orion Township does have an ordinance now where everybody gets has to spray for the Phragmites. And it is very inexpensive actually to do. So that's something that I think we should bring up next year. And thank you for going to the SISMA. I've been there too, and that's how we got the grant for the road commission. And we are signed up again, and it's usually in the fall. So
yes.
Okay. Anybody else? That's it.
Old Planning Commission has 2 site plans that we should hopefully be seeing soon.
Okay.
I have one on the logo. So everybody wanted the logos to go to the schools. So Peach Jar charges for us to post, and it's quite a significant cost. The schools cannot post an outside entities onto their website and send it to the kids. So we've sent it by way of email to everyone that would listen. We've asked them to post it on websites. Newspapers are posting it. So I'm asking the board and everyone out there, we are having a logo contest. We really want to get the word out. So please send it, post it on Facebook. We have flyers here at the township, and it's going to run through September 30th.
Okay. Well, Jacob, you went to Oxford High School graduate. Maybe you could stand out there early in the morning with a sign or something.
You're on that property. We're the property to start passing it up.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we'll move on. Legal reports, we don't have any. Communications, you have any? No communications. Supervisors report. I'd just like to bring up that, we had a terrible spring and the roads were very bad. I have been on the phone. I have met with the road commission. I've done everything I possibly can. And I will say that they have done a fine job now that the rains have quit and they've got the roads back in shape. They've got them chlorided. They came through just before for me. I requested just before the 4th of July weekend that they come through and do the roads, and they did do a special effort, and they organized the chloride, everything above and beyond, and I would have to say I've traveled all the roads, and they're in really good shape right now as far as gravel roads concerned. So I did call the road commission, and I thanked them for their effort, even though I had to wrestle with them all spring long because of the conditions. I will say that I did receive a letter from the Lakeville Lake Board requesting our consideration of a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, which is Article 13, the Lake Lock District Overlay. I just want to let everybody know that, these overlays are at the request of the lake, people who live on the lake. So the board tries to accommodate people who live on the lake, and these things were brought to the board way before our time. So a lot of these things, that's not always us imposing on the people on the lake, is what the lake has requested of us. I am now requesting a formal letter from the LLPOA, and if I get that, next week, I would like to put this on the agenda for next month. As supervisor, I am in charge of the ordinance enforcement, and we have issued 2 warning letters to the people on the lake. Of course, the next issue is a citation, which goes to the court. At this time, I will not seek the issuance of the citations until the issue is resolved. But resolved, it must be done, okay? We must get some kind of, because you have to understand that we don't go after everybody, and if we had an ordinance officer that drove down the road, he could find 10,000 ordinance violations. We respond to people who write requests to us that they have a problem with a neighbor or whatever, and then we respond. And that's how a lot of these things got started. But then when it gets to be such a massive amount of people fighting with their neighbors, then, you know, we can't do specialized enforcement. Then we have to start treating everybody equally. And right now, there is an issue on the lake. So I hope I get a letter from the LLPOA in the next, maybe this week. And I would like to put this on the agenda next week, or next month, because, you know, I don't know what this board will do, and I don't know if anything's going to be done, but we'd certainly like to listen to what people have to say. So other than that, I don't have anything else. And I know that the president of the LLPOA is right here, so you hear me, what I'm requesting. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, and then the next step is we follow the ordinance, you know. So other than that, that's the end of the supervisor's report. And
Can we explain what the board would be deciding next month?
whether or not we turn that over to the planning commission. It's the planning commission that's going to hear this, okay? And then they make a recommendation to us. And if we agree with it, then we may change it. But if we don't agree with it, it's the board. Like I said, the overlay was at the request of the people who live on the lake years ago to keep however they wanted the lake to be at that time. And if something is going to be changed, it's going to take the vote of the board here to change an actual ordinance. And so I'm just opening the door so that we can hear what people have to say. Go ahead.
Let's have to go home with consent.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
For a second? Support. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we adjourn. Next meeting. Looks like it's going to be, what, August 19th? Is that correct? Mine's all smudged here. Correct. Thank you very much.